give your book the best effort you can before you start sending it out because if you don't do that, you're killing your opportunities
Correct.
and you're just doing yourself a disadvantage.
Guys, we are here with Ceci Lee, who is a previous client of mine who finished her first book and also got an agent for it. So, in today's conversation, Ceci is going to take us through how she did that. So, as we go through the journey, hopefully, you guys can pick up some tips and some tricks and some tools, and you can also get inspired by Ceci's journey. Ceci, just for people's context, do you want to give like just a couple of sentences? Who's the woman behind the book? Where are you based? Who are you?
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. I'm Cece. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And my first book that I worked on with Max is a young adult contemporary romance. It's mainly a fake dating trope romance that it's like very close to my own heart, very close to my real life, but not, it's more
Inspired
dramatic. Yeah, it's more inspired by my own life.
by real events.
Um, Yes. It's funny that you mentioned you wanted to interview me for the longest time.
Yeah.
And I just felt, for me, the biggest issue was confidence. And I don't know if you remember when we first started working together, that I just could not, I guess, have the courage to even share my work, to talk about my work. I feel like,
Yeah.
who am I to write a book? Who
Yeah.
I've attempted short stories, but a book is a huge commitment.
Yeah.
Um, and every time you wanted me to share, like, oh, share your accomplishments, I'm like, well, who am I to, share
Yeah.
that? Just because I wrote words, that doesn't mean it's good words.
Yeah.
But now that I finally agreed to the interview, it's because this year I'm trying to be brave and I'm trying to
Great.
grasp onto the courage of
I love that.
sharing with everyone. And I know that a lot of writers suffer with the same confidence issue as I
Oh,
did. So
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, I think even
mhm.
as I was hearing you talking about that, I was thinking at least well, the majority of the audience at home is going to be nodding their heads like, oh my God, yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
It's actually quite amusing to me that a lot of the people I've worked with that had the worst self-doubts at the beginning have actually ended up with the best results at the end of the process. Quite interesting. But okay. So I want to kind of get like the origin story. So if we go backwards in time, you said
Mhm.
that when we first met, you had done short stories and stuff like that before, but it was your very
Mhm.
first time tackling a novel. And so I suppose that was,
Well,
is that
it's my first successful attempt at a novel. Let's just put it that way.
what happened to the other ideas?
Well, I was a huge pantser before we started working together. And
Okay.
I was thinking, writing a book is like creating a piece of art. You don't plan anything. You should not, you just, the creativity spark hits you, and then you
Yeah.
should just be able to pour it out, and it's your story, and you should know everything. So I always just have a character in mind. I have what they call an inciting incident in mind, and then I just started
Yeah.
writing. But then towards the middle, I would just fizzle out, and it destroyed me because I would feel like, oh, I should know this. This is my story. If I can't write it out, that means I'm not meant to be a writer.
Right.
So working with you made me see like, oh, having kind of a structure is very important. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had two manuscripts that I failed at 50,000 words and just kind of could not go on anymore. That's
Interesting. Interesting. So for you guys at home that are listening, what Cece just described is exactly what we talk about when we say the halfway trap, right? So we talk about the reason why writers getting stuck being because they get disorientated. You get halfway through a project and then you lose your bearings and you realize, where am I going next? What is this story about? How do I connect the dots? I feel like I'm losing the plot here, literally,
Mhm.
right?
Yes.
And then when that
Yes.
happens, you start second guessing yourself, and it makes the confidence issues much worse. And of course, if at the back of your mind you're thinking, "Who am I to write a book? Is this even any good? It probably just sucks." How are you supposed to
Hmm.
stay motivated when you're thinking things like that? And so you see, from disorientation downstream of that comes all of the confidence and the self doubt and the motivation issues, and that's kind of how projects end up dying. So.
Yes.
Thank you for that. That gives us a pretty clear picture of kind of where you were getting stuck. So, what was it that you changed? Or you can tell people a little bit about some of the tools that we showed you, or some of the stuff that we did together. Really, I want to know how your approach changed that facilitated you finishing this book.
Hmm.
Yeah, what did you change?
So I think the concept that you talked about before, which I don't know how familiar your audience will be with the concept of the story ladder, that really blew my mind a lot. Like, oh, stories have layers.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not just what is happening on the surface with
yeah,
the characters. It's also their inner struggle, and there's a theme underneath that you want the reader to take away with.
yeah.
So that part really made me think about the meaning behind my story. And now that I'm looking back, the two books that I weren't able to finish, they kind of had a hint of the internal struggle. They had some plot happening, but then in the end, I kind of never really thought about the meaning behind the story. So it kind of made
Yeah.
me lose track. So that was probably the biggest tool that helped me improve my writing and also my planning.
I'm
Like
glad.
right now, I just finished a book, another one afterwards,
High
and
five.
yay.
Yeah.
And that, because I'm sort of a big pantser that I want to discover my story along the way as I write, I still do plan. I think about the meaning behind my story first before I even start writing. I think
Mhm.
about what my character's journey will be, where I want her to start, and where I want her to end up with. That
Awesome.
really helps me kind of as a guide to lead me onto the journey while I'm
Yeah.
discovering the little details of the story.
Good. Okay. All right. I'm really glad that that tool helped because I
Mhm.
was not using those ideas for a very long time, and then they all kind of fell into place. And then I thought, "Oh, actually, I can illustrate it. I think I can illustrate it." And then that made the teaching so much easier. And it's really
Mhm.
nice to hear that, like it made the learning process easier as well. So, okay, so that helped you kind of get your ideas together into a shape that let you have, I guess, enough confidence in the story to finish it or to see it through.
Mhm.
People are going to want to know about the query journey, and you can be like very raw and very honest here because my audience knows that it's not easy and that
Right.
a lot of people do not make it to the result that you made it to. But I will say, Cece, before I get you talking about the query stuff, I read your whole book um,
Mhm.
on a flight on a way back to London, and I was like tearing up a little bit at the end on the flight, and I
Oh.
was like, "Oh, I can see why this got an agent because those three layers that you talked about, like the plot and the character change and the deeper meaning of the story, you did a very
Mhm.
good job with those things."
Oh, thank
And
you.
so I can see why you were eventually able to get representation. But anyway, take us through querying. So right
Ah, yes.
from the beginning, the book is finished. Then what?
So I was a guilty person that started querying when I wasn't 100% ready. And this could
Oh,
be a big tip for people who are watching.
yeah,
Um, I started querying. I had a decent query letter that I was able to get critiqued on by a couple of friends.
yeah.
And I wasn't even finished with the editing stage yet. I
Oh, okay.
wasn't, I was still kind of on the second round of edit, trying to fix and cut little, little words and stuff.
Yeah,
So I sent it out and I got a request. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Because I'm not done.
yeah,
So I, in haste, I read over my book all over again in like an hour, which, is not, it's a very rough job of
yeah.
fixing everything. And I sent my first full request. And a few weeks back, I got the rejection from the agent saying there's a lot of issues with pacing. There's, um, I guess, more, they were looking for more depth of the character.
Yeah.
Um, but I felt like I had all of those. And then when I was rereading what I sent her, it felt like I needed to cut a lot of action tags or speech tags that were or metaphors that was slowing down my pacing. So what I
Yeah.
would highly recommend for other people is give your book the best effort you can before you start sending it out because if you don't do that, you're killing your opportunities
Correct.
and you're just doing yourself a disadvantage.
100%.
But even after I finished my final edits, querying is still a very I don't want to say discouraging, but it's very humbling.
Humbling. Humbling.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, that
yes,
works.
it's a very humbling process.
Yeah,
And I was at a very dark period during
yeah,
a lot of the rejections. Like I think I probably got 5 or 6 full requests, which is phenomenal.
yeah.
But out of how many queries I sent, I probably sent out maybe 60 some queries, and each rejection I just felt more and more less and less confident, and to the point where I was doubting myself again, like, who am I to be a writer? Who am I to even think about traditional publishing? I might
Wow.
as well just give up.
Wow.
um, but there was one point when I think I was watching an agent interview on a YouTube video,
Mhm.
and she said that you either keep going or you give up and make space for other people. Whether or not you are able to give up, that's your own problem. And I thought
Mm.
about that a lot. And I just didn't want to give up. I
Okay,
really,
good.
I had a lot of passion for my story, and I felt like it deserved to be heard. So I just keep sending each rejection I get. I would send out 3 more queries just to see where I can get. And then at that point, I was like, I love my story, and it's okay if it doesn't get anywhere. I just want to get it out and get eyes on it. And if
Mm.
nobody picks it up, then nobody picks it up. And then I can write another story. It's not going to be the end of my writer life because I just cannot give up writing.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, I think I can see why you ended up succeeding because even though you did have dark periods, when I hear you talk about it now, I can tell that your head was in the right space to persist, which
Hmm.
is the most important thing, right? What I really liked that you highlighted earlier was that you were glad actually that it felt like an achievement, even just to get the requests, even though they were rejected. Do
Hmm.
you know that game Marco Polo? Where somebody, that you close your eyes, one person closes their eyes, and then you
Yes.
go Marco Polo, and then you have to try and get close to them and find them. I think
Yes.
querying is a lot like that game. Um, we can kind of sense based on the how agents are responding, whether you're getting warmer and warmer or whether we're getting
Hmm.
colder. And rejections are very useful for navigating in that sense. So a rejection is not in querying a bad thing. You should
No, not
expect
at all.
them. You should expect them, absolutely.
Hmm.
And if you're not hearing anything back at all, in other words, you're not even getting rejected, then, or you're just getting template rejections, that means
Hmm.
something is probably going wrong because we're not making it past the slush pile. In other words, we're not even getting far enough that the agent is giving it a proper look. You're probably tripping up on something big and obvious, right? But if you're getting
Right.
requests like, hey, can I see the rest of the book? And then they look it over and then they say, no, thank you. That is a pretty loud polo. That tells you that you're actually getting quite close. And it
Hmm.
means that there's probably just a couple of things in the manuscript itself, not in the pitch, not in the query, not in the story idea, but in the actual
Hmm.
manuscript that you're tripping up on. And if you can figure out those things, if the agent is kind enough to give you some personalized feedback, which is a very good sign, um,
Hmm.
then at that stage, I'd put my money on this person then getting an agent, you know? So I guess you kind of had that experience. When did you eventually hear yes? How many times did you have to query before you eventually heard yes? And what was the story of the yes?
Um, Honestly, I didn't really have an end goal for myself. I had a list of agents I wanted to query, and
Hmm.
I figured I'll send it to all of them.
Yeah,
And if none of them said yes, then I will just, move on. At the time, I was already planning on my second book. So I just figured it's not going to be the end of my journey.
yeah,
Even with this book,
yeah,
I have other ideas in me. So.
yeah,
And what you mentioned about the rejection too, it's so important for writers to see their little accomplishments along the
yeah.
way. Like, one rejection is a professional that actually looked at either your
Yep,
pages or your query
yep,
letter. Um, a request, even if it's an ultimate no, you still got eyes on from agents.
yeah,
You still reached someone, and you
exactly.
got your work out there. So I feel like writers always look at the end results so often that we forgot that it's a huge
Yeah.
accomplishment just to even finish a book, you know?
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's important to give yourself props for those things because it
Yes.
is like a series of little milestones that you go through. And if at
Hmm.
every milestone you're just beating yourself up for not being at the next milestone, man, that's
Right.
discouraging. So,
Yes.
okay, but I wanna get the number out of you. Like, how many did you actually query before you heard yes?
Um, I probably could like maybe 62 to 65
Yep,
total. I did
yep,
have to withdraw a couple because once you get the offer notification, if you don't want that person to respond to you, then you have to properly withdraw. So the data may not be 100% accurate, but it's around 60-ish.
the reason I wanted you to say that is because I want people to get an idea of a realistic ballpark, right?
Oh,
Like
yes.
you just said like 60 something. I think Victoria was like 80, 100 something. I think
Hmm.
Alana that I talked to, it was in that same kind of ballpark as well. Like it is very normal to have to contact 50 to 100 people
Oh, yes.
before you get a yes, just so that people know. Yeah.
Yes. And
Okay.
it also helps prepare you for the real world too. Because
Yeah.
once you have an agent, it's not a guarantee that your book will be published.
Yeah.
You have to still submit to editors. And with editors, you get rejections too. So it
Yep.
only just prepares you for a slice of life,
Yes,
basically.
exactly. And that's also why it's a good idea to have more books in the tank because
Yes.
it's actually very common that the first book's not the one that gets picked up. It would be a
Hmm.
great stroke of luck if that does happen. So I got all my fingers and toes crossed for you. But I
Oh, thank you.
also know that you're going to keep writing regardless. So it's really
Hmm.
just a matter of time until you get some book out there one way or another, because you're not going to
I
give up.
hope so.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, perfect. So I guess I will bring this conversation to a close. I suppose if you were, um, okay, I'll put it this way. With a lot of the other interviews that I do, I feel like I'm talking to a different Cece than the first Cece that I spoke to a year or two back. What would the Cece sitting here with me today say if you were on a Zoom call with Cece 2 years ago and she was
Oh,
saying, "My
God.
book's not worth it. I can't finish anything. How am I ever supposed to succeed?" What would you say?
Um, I would probably tell that Cece to stop torturing herself and
Yeah.
to um because seriously, I feel like tortured artist is a trope and
Yeah.
it's a terrible trope to live in. And
Yeah.
we fall into that trap that we have to have results right away. But sometimes results it's not the whole proof of your hard work.
Yeah.
And enjoying the process is so important
Yes.
because everyone that's watching this video, I'm sure you love writing, but don't let the result stop you from enjoying that process. Um, Even if you're suffering from a writer's block or something like that, it's part of the process and it will pass. And you have the tools and you have the power to I guess power through everything. You just have to believe in yourself, basically.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Cece, thank you so much. I think a lot of people are going to benefit from this conversation. So thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.